Good morning, meteorologist James Longwith here with Dynamic Weather Agency LLC, giving you guys a tropical weather update. But before I get into today's video, I do encourage you guys to hit that like button, subscribe to our channel if you haven't already. It does help out that YouTube algorithm, allow more people to be able to find my videos and get the weather information that I'm trying to convey out there to the public. Also, be sure to check out that description section. If you haven't followed us on social media, the links are going to be down there in that description section, along with the link to our website, dynamicweatheragency.com. If you head on over to that forecast tab, move down to tropical weather, you can find information about current tropical storms, climatology. Also find our interactive tropical tracker over there located on our website. If you haven't already, also be sure to check out that link to our Patreon page to help support this channel, allow me to create more content, and allow me to do certain things like do upgrades to our website, be able to do research and fund some of our storm chasing and research with that too. So again, be sure to check out that Patreon page. It does help out with me creating videos like this too. So be sure to check that out. Alright, getting into today's video. Now, first thing we're going to be taking a look at is the 2021 seasonal stats so far for the Atlantic hurricane season. We'll then go into some climatology, and then take a look at some of the National Hurricane Center products like our tropical development outlook. We'll then be taking a look at some of those parameters needed for tropical formation. We'll be looking at our sea surface temperatures, some of our Atlantic wind shear. We'll take a look at some of our teleconnections because we do have a very moderate La Nina developing in the Pacific, and we'll talk about how that and the Mattajulian oscillation, how all that plays into into tropical formation. We'll be taking a look at our current IR satellite, and then some of those long-range weather models, where some of the models are hinting on possibly some tropical development is way far out on the GFS and European model, but we'll have to continue to monitor that, see if that stays within there, if this is a outlier within the model, stuff like that, because the models do tend to deviate a little bit from reality as we move really far on out. Now, taking a look at those Atlantic hurricane season stats. Now, first taking a look at those names. So far this year, we've had 20 named storms, with the last storm being Victor, Wanda being the last storm left on the 2021 hurricane season list. This isn't the first time, this won't be the first time if we go through this Atlantic hurricane season through all the names this year. Back in 2005, we did that where we started using the Greek alphabet, which was previously the most active Atlantic hurricane season on record, followed by 2020, which is now the most active Atlantic hurricane season on record, where we went through quite a bit of the Greek alphabet. And as I mentioned in previous videos, the Greek alphabet has actually been retired for being used now for hurricane season names once we move through this Atlantic hurricane season list. And there's a couple reasons for that. The first reason is that I mentioned in previous videos is the translation of some of those names into different languages led to confusion of what storm was what, and what storm was still out there, what storm was not out there, and those locations of those storm systems. That was the first thing. The second thing was the World Meteorological Organization had no plan to retire any of those supplemental names in the Greek alphabet for the Atlantic hurricane season. And Eta and Iota last year were considered strong and severe enough hurricanes that are storm systems that the names were retired due to that. And with that, the World Meteorological Organization had no plan for us retiring those names, and once we retire a name, we don't reuse those names. So they came up with this year, the new thing is the 2021 Atlantic hurricane season supplemental list of names. So now we have an additional list of 21 names that will be used this year once we go through Wanda. Taking a look at those stats again, like I said, we've had 20 named storms for this season, 7 hurricanes, and 4 major hurricanes. Since the last time I made a video, the total fatalities has increased by 1. We're now at 159, and the total storm damage has increased to $69.513 billion for this Atlantic hurricane season, and that makes it the 4th costliest tropical cyclone season on record for the Atlantic hurricane season. Also for this year, so far, the strongest storm system has been Sam, with the 1 minute sustained winds of, I believe, 155 miles an hour, and the lowest pressure of 925 millibars so far for this Atlantic hurricane season, all with Hurricane Sam that stayed over the central Atlantic. Now, taking a look at the 2021 hurricane season forecast, where are we at? So the NOAA, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, forecasted in their late season update 15 to 21 named storms with an average of 14. So far this year, we're at 20, so we're still above average for this year. For hurricanes, they did update their forecast to 7 to 10 forecasted hurricanes this season. 7 is the average. Right now, we're right on average for hurricanes. For major hurricanes, they forecasted 3 to 5. The average is 3, and so far this season, we're at 4. Now, taking a look at our hurricane frequency on Climo, as you can see where we are now, we're past that peak of hurricane season, which is around September 10th. We're moving into the last third of the hurricane season with hurricanes possible all the way through October, even into parts of November and into early December. Basically, we were talking about this in previous videos. You know, why does hurricane season lag into basically late summer, fall, and then begin tapering off into winter when the ocean waters be cool by then? And that goes back to that thing I've been talking about in previous videos. You know, it goes back to specific heat of objects. You know, water has a very high specific heat. It takes a lot of energy, a long time for those ocean waters to basically absorb all that heat and be able to also absorb that heat up to certain depths of the ocean. And then it takes not only a long time for it to absorb that, it takes a long time for it to release that heat. So those ocean waters are able to stay warm for a longer period of time. Now, taking a look at our October hurricane frequency tracks, basically by NOAA, the most favorable areas for tropical development right now is supposed to be based off of Climo, is going to be within the Caribbean, the Gulf region, along the eastern coast of the United States, as in this graphic right here. Now, as we take a look at our tropical outlook, now our tropical formation outlook for the next 5 days is rather benign. We're not seeing much activity within the tropical Atlantic, and we'll be talking about that here real soon. So not expecting any tropical formation, at least within the short term in the next 5 days. Now, taking a look at our sea surface temperatures, I do want to focus your attention across parts of the eastern Pacific, right within this region right here. Right in this area, we do have some cooler than average ocean water temperatures, and this is indicating that we have a La Nina going on, and we do have a moderate La Nina in effect. What is happening is we're having increased easterly trade winds across this area, and what that's allowing for is upwelling of water along the coast of South America, transporting that water westward across the Pacific, and then the water is downwelling across the basically the western Pacific. And as we take a look at the basically the ENSO index, basically how it's been progressing for a while, we've been on this D trend of our ENSO into this La Nina for a while, which now we're latest values are at negative 0.771 across the Celsius across the Pacific. And taking a look at the ENSO forecast, taking a look at some of the models, we're expected to stay in this La Nina for quite some time and probably not move on out until sometime, whether it be early spring to possibly even into April, May, June, by the time we may even move on out of this ENSO. Now, taking a look at the graphic on the left, this is our Madden-Julian oscillation. Right now, we're in this phase 6, and this is unfavorable conditions right now, especially over the Atlantic. As we move into time, we'll begin to move on into this phase 5 and 4, which is going to be more favorable tropical development. As we take a look at the basically the MJO VP200 forecast, you can see we have these kind of neutral conditions over the Atlantic right now, as indicated by the whites. We do have the yellows, which are showing suppressive conditions, unfavorable conditions of the MJO, as air is sinking across large areas of basically the western portions of Africa, where we have a lot of our tropical easterly waves come off of, so we're not seeing much tropical development within that region. But we're beginning to see, as we move into week 1 and week 2, this blue, this more favorable phase of the MJO begin to move on in over the tropical Atlantic. and this is going to basically not only this is going to basically increase rainfall over much of these regions as we start seeing a lot more upward vertical motion within some of these areas. And not only that, it's also going to decrease some of the wind shear over the Atlantic. As we take a look, we do have some areas of unfavorable wind shear. We do have some areas of favorable development over the tropical Atlantic, but we do have some of those inhibiting factors within that area. So now as we take a look at our sea surface temperatures in the tropical Atlantic, everything below this line right here is basically indicating favorable ocean water temperatures for tropical development. Everything below that line is above about 26 degrees Celsius, indicating the sea surface temperatures are about 80 degrees Fahrenheit. We can also see the Gulf Stream transporting nice tropical ocean waters poleward along the eastern coast of the United States. And we also have very favorable ocean water conditions within the Gulf region, approaching around 30 degrees Celsius, especially off the coast south of the Cuban island. Now, taking a look at this graphic right here, is showing how deep within the tropical Atlantic are those 26 degrees Celsius or 80 degree Fahrenheit isotherms reaching. As I mentioned before in previous videos, it's important not only for that sea surface temperature to be relatively warm, we want the ocean water underneath that to also be warm, because these low pressure systems have converging air, and that air is then forced to rise upward, and that causes a lot of upwelling of ocean waters. And if you upwell some cool ocean waters, then becomes unfavorable for tropical development, because that begins to choke off those storm systems. So not only do we have to look at the sea surface temperatures, we also have to take a look at the depth of those sea surface temperatures. And taking a look at south of Cuba, relatively warm sea surface temperatures within this region. South of Cuba, excuse me, I did a really bad job at drawing that. Now as we take a look at those depths, again, south of Cuba, now, as we take a look at those sea surface temperatures, again, like I said, south of Cuba, we have relatively warm ocean waters. And you can see those ocean waters are extending well below basically 150 to about 200 meters below the ocean surface. And as I said before, the magical number is about 200 feet below the ocean surface. That's somewhere between 50 and about 75 meters below the ocean surface. I believe is around 65 meters below the ocean surface is about 200 feet. And you can see a lot of this area within that green shade, indicating that we have, relatively warm ocean waters well below, 200 feet below the ocean surface. So we have a lot of areas where we have potential for tropical development across the tropical Atlantic. And this also transposes relatively well into that tropical cyclone heat potential, because it doesn't take not only the sea surface temperatures, it also takes into account that that previous chart I was just showing you, the depth of those sea surface temperatures. And again, where we have those relatively deep, warm ocean waters, we have the most tropical cyclone heat potential, and that's of course still being painted along the regions of the Caribbean, within the Cuban islands and the Dominican Republic. Now, taking a look at our 24-hour shear tendency chart, we have increasing wind shear across the United States. We have these nice deep upper level troughs moving across the area, creating some increased horizontal and vertical wind shear. It looks like we have maybe another trough moving on through this region of the northern Atlantic, maybe a jet finger moving across this region, causing some converging, maybe another trough moving on through this area with another diverging jet finger. But across this region of the Atlantic, as you can see, we have some favorable conditions of tropical development, a little bit of increasing shear, but mostly the shear values are sort of decreasing or staying the same. But we'll see here in just a minute, we have some things moving across basically the eastern tropical Atlantic that's decreasing tropical development across this region. Again, we also have some favorable shear conditions in the Gulf region, but again, we're not seeing much in tropical cyclone developments. We don't have any good clusters of thunderstorm development across this area. As we take a look at our tropical cyclone formation intensification chart that we have right here, over the basically the Gulf region, we have favorable tropical development conditions over that region. We also have favorable tropical development conditions over the eastern Atlantic. As I switch colors right here, we do have unfavorable conditions over the northern Atlantic. This is again due to those trough axes, increasing vertical and horizontal wind shear across the region. And then we have a small area of unfavorable conditions right here, but why aren't we seeing tropical development within this region and this region right here? As I mentioned, we have some things moving eastward across the eastern Atlantic that we'll take a look at here in a second, and we also have some things that are causing unfavorable conditions across the Gulf region. Now, as we take a look at our NASA dust model, as you can see on here, the tropical easterly jet is pushing a lot of Saharan dust across the eastern tropical Atlantic. This is causing a lot of dry air across that region. As we take a look at our GFS 850 millibar relative humidities, you can see a lot of that dry air moving on into the region, and that's causing a lot of unfavorable tropical development across the eastern Atlantic with some suppressing air. You can also see a little bit of dry air moving on into parts of the Gulf region, the northern Gulf region, over the next couple of days, and it's going to take a little while for some of that moisture to redevelop back into that region for some tropical development. Now, as we take a look at our GO-16 tropical satellite imagery, not much as in thunderstorm convective activity. We do have this big front and trough axis moving across the the central Atlantic region right now. As for that, we don't have any complex thunderstorms developing over the Gulf region where we can see tropical development, and not really much across the western coast of Africa. We do have this complex of thunderstorms right here, but like I said, we do have a lot of dust and unfavorable dry air moving on into the region. So this is why we're not expecting much as in tropical activity over the next couple of days. Now, taking a look at our weather models, this is going to be our long range forecast. So basically from now all the way out to about November 1st. So as we go further on out into the model runs, expect to have a lot more low confidence in what the GFS model is showing right here, as the weather models begin to start to exaggerate weather conditions and begin to deviate a little bit from what we should be expecting. But as we take a look at the short term for the GFS model, as we move on out, you can see this kind of complex of thunderstorms west of Africa moving towards the central Atlantic across the southern central Atlantic region. And as we move all the way out to about the 72 to 90 hour mark, even all the way out to about 114 hours, we start to see the system begin to start to organize according to the GFS model right here. And you can see we have this complex of thunderstorms as noted by the GFS model across the southern portions of the Atlantic. It's hard to tell whether or not this will actually develop into anything, if it's going to be a tropical depression, a tropical storm right now. It's hard to judge the forecast strength of the system this far out. We'll have to see if the National Hurricane Center puts a low confidence area over the basically southern portions of the Atlantic, southern central portions of the Atlantic, for this complex of thunderstorms that may develop across this area and basically move to the east. It's not going to stay intense for very long. It's going to quickly intensify and begin to basically start to decrease in intensity as it moves westward. But as we continue further on out into the GFS model, now moving on out to about 180 hours in the GFS model, this is basically looking at now the afternoon of October 23rd. And I want to point out this area right on over here, southern portions of Mexico near Guatemala, stuff like that. We can see the development maybe of possibly a complex of thunderstorms, this area of low pressure. And this is going to be very important to watch right here as we take a look further on out into the GFS model. This area of low pressure is going to basically start to transverse its way across Mexico and the Yucatan Peninsula area and begin to develop into the tropical Gulf region, the Gulf of Mexico, where this storm system by the GFS model shows some intensification into possibly a tropical storm system or even possibly a hurricane in the Gulf of Mexico region. And right now the GFS model has that storm system stalling on out over the region and possibly moving its way towards the Gulf Coast region. But before I can even show you where that system is going to go, take a look at what the GFS model has developing out here. This is about 330 hours into the GFS model, now all the way out into the 30th of October. We got a tropical easterly wave moving off the coast of Africa, possibly developing into another tropical system. So now we have two areas to watch out for. So as we continue on into the GFS model, again, we have that tropical system over the Gulf region, and now we have this new tropical system developing across the eastern Atlantic, and all those systems continue to move onward. And it's hard to tell where this tropical cyclone over the Gulf region is going to move. So far right now, the model has it kind of staying stationary over the Gulf region, making a southward movement towards basically the southern portions of Florida and Cuba. So this is something we're going to have to look out for. Like I said, this is really far out into the GFS model. A lot could change. Tomorrow, this could be totally gone within the GFS model. The next model run, it could be gone. Tomorrow, it could be gone. Or it could continue on within the models. Maybe the models will show it now, get rid of it, show it again. So this is a lot of unknowns right now. So this isn't a complete forecast of what's going to happen. This is a model suggestion of what's going to happen over the next couple of days. So like I said, we have that one area, possible development, maybe into a tropical depression, if anything, across the southern portions of the Atlantic region. But as we move further on out into the GFS, by the time we get into the 23rd to 24th of October, tropical development, southern portions of Mexico, near just to the west of Guatemala, storm system transversing across the southern portions of Mexico, west of the Yucatan Peninsula, developing into possibly a tropical system by the 26th or the 27th. In the Gulf of Mexico region, intensifying into a tropical storm, maybe a low-end hurricane across this area, and then begin to see some tropical development across the western portions of across the eastern portions, of the tropical Atlantic off the western coast of Africa by the time we get into the 29th, 30th of October, and continuing on into November. I do want to thank you guys for checking out today's video on our tropical forecast update. Again, not much going on right now, but in the long range, we do have a couple things to take a look at. Like I said, if you haven't already, be sure to hit that like button, subscribe down below. It does help out with that YouTube algorithm so more people can find my videos. And not only that, again, like I said, be sure to check out our description section. Follow us on social media. Check us out online at our website, dynamicweatheragency.com. And be sure to help us out by supporting our channel by going over to our Patreon page. And we have basically donations starting as low as $1 a month and a lot of exclusive access and perks to some of the higher tier Patreon packages that we have on over there. Again, all that is going to help fund this channel, my website, and some of the research and our storm chasing efforts that we have here at Dynamic Weather Agency LLC. So that concludes today's video. I do hope you guys have a great and wonderful day, and be sure to check out our video later on today talking about the severe weather threat across much of the Northeast.